Glad to be with you all today. So I get the easiest presentation of the whole orientation, okay? So we're going to provide general knowledge of agriculture operations in Maryland, as well as showcasing some conservation practices that can benefit typical land uses related to these operations. So I think as you've been through these presentations from all our different experts across the state and across the partnership, I think it's really easy to see, right? We've got a dynamic and diverse state that we live in. We've got dynamic and diverse soils, regions, climates. One thing that's consistent to some degree is rainfall, unless we're talking about Garrett County and Allegheny. So it's interesting, our agriculture is no different. So if you can somebody tell me what's the number one ag industry in the chat in Maryland? Did we get poultry? Okay. Sorry guys, all right. So what's number two? Okay. What's the total dollars that the poultry generates, it contributes in the state of Maryland on an annual basis? All right. So in the state of Maryland, there's on average farming operation consists of 161 acres. Number of operations, 12,400. Total acres operated is 2 million. All right, so what's fascinating here is, we're employing some 350,000 people, including 6,000 full-time farmers, and annual income generated in the state of Maryland is $8.25 billion annually. 32% of the total land use is agricultural land. What's also fascinating, and we're starting to see more and more, is we have 20 urban farms in Baltimore City. So I asked about statistics. Poultry and eggs are number one. Over $1 billion of annual income generated off the poultry industry alone. Number two, from a dollar perspective, is dairy cows, is milk from cows. So how many, we see them very commonly in Frederick, Carroll, Hartford, Washington counties, Garrett County, maybe not so much on Eastern Shore. And you can see our other breakdown there. Cattle and calves is going to be your beef operations. Then other animals, other animal products, that may be emus, that might be ducks. And then, of course, you see horses, ponies, aquaculture, hogs, pigs, sheep, goats, and wool. So as we start looking at the different areas and the varying differences across soils, landscapes, so on and so forth, in the southeast, southern, eastern shore of Maryland, diverse includes not only crops, but also dairy, livestock, honey, horticulture, nurseries, poultry, wineries, and vineyards. Has a strong agricultural base because of its rich soils, pastures, so on and so forth. So what we did here is we broke this down a little bit by land use and then just give a little flavor of some typical conservation practices that you may prescribe in the planning process to address resource needs. So, some Common practices that you may see on Eastern Shore on cropland, obviously maybe irrigation, maybe center pivot, could be cover crops, crop rotation, everything could be shelter belts. Also, you see a lot of shelter belts more and more tied to the poultry houses as an air quality practice to filter out particulate matter that's removed through exhaust fans. On the pasture side, equine, and of course, pipeline for water systems for grazing. On the farmstead side, it may be common to see mortality composters, obviously stacking sheds for poultry litter. And then also what's a little more unique and more prevalent over there from the NRCS perspective, see a little more on the energy audit and energy enhancement side of things related to lighting and a number of different facets in those operations. Also, from the wildlife perspective, since we're right there at the cusp, right in the middle of the bay, interesting with the oyster restoration. That's very, very unique. And then also wetland restoration may not have quite the uniqueness, which because we'll see that across the state, but there seems to be more and more based on the land use and land types more abundantly utilized on the shore. And then also on the forestry side, you have tree and shrub establishment. We get in over into the Western Maryland side of things. We see a lot more four-legged creatures, open pastures that include beef, dairy, swine, sheep, and goats. And of course, crops grown include corn, soybean, wheat, forages, fruits, and vegetables. I think what makes things a little unique over here and a little more complex is that diverse topography with ridge and valleys that lends to a number of assorted number of resource concerns that cover multiple land uses. Some practices that you may see that are very common on cropland would be cover crops, grass waterway, tying back into Susan's conversation, looking at resource concerns on cropland. We're going to utilize those grassed waterways to prevent and eliminate gully erosion from concentrated flow. On the pasture side, we're going to see prescribed grazing, watering facilities, fencing, ag waste storage facilities potentially, and then also back on the farmstead and headquarters, roofs and covers, and ag waste storage facilities. And on occasion, we'll get to in the bottom right-hand corner here, you'll see the round tank for liquid storage. Wildlife, riparian forested buffers, early successional habitat. In the western region over here, just like Julie had mentioned when she talked about some of the different species in the different regions across the state, with Allegheny and Garrett having the bulk of the forest land, we do a fair amount of early successional habitat to benefit golden-winged warbler, cerulean warbler, and other bird species. Also on the forestry front, we'll see tree and shrub establishment, forest stand improvements. And that is it, Steve. Any questions, comments? Like I said, very simple, very quick and dirty, but
all right, thanks, Brad. Quick overview of Maryland farming. I don't see any questions coming in. You did get